not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Trust TV. And right now it's time for the newspaper review. And today on the newspaper review, we have a lot of national dailies that we will be focusing on. But just before we move into that, to give us an analysis on the stories on the front page of these particular dailies, we have Ali M. Ali, Deputy President, Nigerian Guild of Editors. He's our guest on this segment today. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Good
morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start. Let's start with Daily Trust newspaper. We'll start with the lead story that we have here, and it talks about Democracy Day. Nigerians seek more dividends. We must get it right in 2023, says governors. We also have riders that say, don't use religion, ethnicity for campaign. CDD tells politicians. Abiodun Fintiri free 46 inmates. And if you take a look at the pictorial just below this story, you'd see a picture of arrival of first flight carrying pilgrims from Nigeria in the holy city of Medina. Beside the pictorial are more stories. Many killed, houses razed in Benue attacks. Bandits abduct 50 wedding guests in Zamfara. DIG, 4 AIGs, 3 CPs, others for Ekiti governorship election. And below the pictorial there, terrorists killed 55 ironmongers in Borno in 3 weeks, says police. And we have writers that say, how we thwarted plans to bomb Abuja, Kaduna, says defense chief. Mixed reactions as Owo indigene links attack to missed targets. Southwest governors urged to re-energize Amotekun. And right above the page, we have more hardship for Nigerians over rising inflation, power cuts, food shortages, says World Bank. And nationwide outage as electricity grid crashes to zero. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. So we will forward some of these stories to our guest in the studio today. Yes, our reviewer in the studio. All right, so let's talk about the lead story. Today is Democracy Day. Yesterday was Democracy Day, but it's been celebrated today. So, Nigerians, so far are saying that, they have not seen dividends of democracy and asking for more. What's your thoughts on democracy in Nigeria?
Well, I share in the pessimism of most Nigerians that 23 years now, since the dawn of this republic, we've not seen in concrete terms the dividends of democracy. So I share in the pessimism and reservation of most Nigerians. Because democracy, well, they say it's a process, but in the last couple of years since the dawn of democracy, Nigeria has been the worst for it. One would dread to imagine how Nigeria was under the iron fist of military rule and contemporary times. What I mean, if you look at all the indices of development in the last 21 years, they have not only nosedived, you see the quality of life has similarly taken maybe worse hits. Nigerians now look at all the indices of development and then look at even the indices for good governance. Well, people say, yeah, democracy, especially the kind we practice, presidential democracy is expensive, and then the nation's economy, that the presidential democracy is actually the function of a stable economy, which in the last couple of years has been anything but stable. But if you look at it, what has democracy brought in the last 21 years or two? When I say when I question the delivery of democracy, I'm not romanticizing military rule, no. But look at it on a platter. When you look at it, what has democracy brought to Nigeria?
Okay, well, I think we'll actually discuss more on that.
Yes. I wanted to say we'll discuss more on this later at the next hour. But before we move on, there's one of the writers on the front page of Daily Trust is saying has the story of the Center for Democracy and Development, one of the pro-democracy think tanks in Abuja, asking politicians not to campaign based on ethnicity, religion. As we move into the next election, what are your thoughts regarding this issue of religion and ethnicity in determining who gets the 2023 presidency?
Well, I think it's important. It's an ideal, and I think Nigerians should share that ideal, that we should move away. Let's campaign on issues, not the usual fault lines. When we harp on the usual fault line, we'll not get it right. But you see, worldwide, dependent, there will be that one politician who would harp on differences, on what divides the people. In other climes, if you go to even advanced democracy, if you go to the UK, you go to the US, there are always segmentation along race, along economic class, status. There will always be that segmentation. But unfortunately, what we do here in Africa, and in Nigeria especially, is to harp on the fault lines. People are not saying this is what we're going to do for you, but they want to say, no, you are this, you are that. And when you harp on these fault lines, you more often than not, you get what you wish, because in the process of annexing state power, people deploy whatever sentiments they have at their disposal. But once they access an annexed state power, that's when they turn around and preach unity. What the CADD actually is doing is something that an agency like the National Orientation Agency should have been involved in. The progenitor of NOA, National Orientation Agency, MAMSA, in 1990, well, in the 90s actually, did a lot of work in getting Nigerians to focus on the real issues, not on these issues, well, if you like, cosmetic, if you like. Because if you look at really Nigerians, are we really truly divided along ethnic and religious lines? If you given our recent history, especially post-Civil War. Because if we look at some of us, my generation, product of integration, and even younger elements, they don't really see through this narrow prism. And that's why if you go out there in cyberspace, young millennials, young Nigerians, is only politicians of the old hue, of the old color, who are given to regionalism, that have on this idea, you are this, you are that. But we have new Nigerians who are totally oblivious, product of integration, like my generation, and even before the millennials, who see Nigerians truly through different prism. Now, if you look at product of federal government colleges, product of inter-ethnic marriages, product of unity colleges, they are so intertwined. They have made friends across the Niger, built bridges over the years. So it's even unthinkable. We have them. Let me just narrow this to someone like Sunusi Lamido Sunusi. Sunusi Lamido Sunusi, a prince from the royal family of Kano, attended a Catholic school in Kaduna, primary school, went to King's College, attended ABU. And then look at, they have people of his generation like that. They think Nigeria. But you see, this is very crucial now. This idea that, well, like you said, think tanks like this. But you see, it's one thing, sometimes they say, it's one thing to lead the horse to the river, but can you force the horse to drink the water? You understand? So it's important, it's an ideal Nigerians ideally we should subscribe to. But you see, some of us are already converted, my generation, like I said. But you see politicians, especially the old hue, this is the only way they know how to get to the voters.
Okay. All right, so let's take more stories, and we're going to merge three of them in one, talking about insecurity and terrorism. We've heard of, on page 6 of, the houses that have been razed and people killed in Benue State, bandits abducting 50 wedding guests in Zamfara, and, terrorists, killing 55 ironmongers in Borno State in 3 weeks by police. And then we're actually talking about democracy, yes, yet these things are actually happening. What are your thoughts on...
Wow, you see, anywhere there is insecurity, it threatens a lot of things. Insecurity is key. And constitutionally speaking, the primary purpose of government is the provision of protection of life and property. But you see, Nigeria is challenged beyond what we see. Beyond, there is energy insecurity, there is food insecurity, look at one of the headlines there in today's Trust, what the World Bank is saying. And Nigeria is not alone. If you look at globally, there is a global economic meltdown. Inflation, you can ascribe the factors responsible for the hike in inflation worldwide. But you see, what stares out in the face, and that's why sometimes when we assess this government in the last couple of years, in the 7 years that it has held sway and called the shots, if at all it has devoted energy alone to fighting insecurity. But beyond the physical security of the nations, well, the borders, the sovereignty of the country, there are other challenges linked to insecurity, like I said, energy security, food security, and then look at all of them. Nigerians are being challenged. Well, in my neighborhood, if you don't have alternative sources of energy, probably you will not even get light you won't get power for days on end. Today, the national grid has routinely collapsed. I'm just giving you one aspect of insecurity that people tend to overlook because we are so overwhelmed by this wanton killing, which is, I'm not saying in any way taking away, the value on human lives. But look at, people are insecure. So it's quite depressing when you listen to that. These are the things that will scare away all the time investors. So it's really depressing. But you see also the government, like it has been said before, it's being overwhelmed. Notwithstanding the assurances given once in a while by security top guns, like the Chief of Defense Staff, for example, now, maybe it's something that we should share. But really, it calls for no cheer when he said, I think one of the networks, which is captured in today's Trust, that look, but for their vigilance, the Abuja and Kaduna and one other city would have been bombed. Yes, maybe this calls for some cheer, but incidentally, that's what they're there for. More often than not, you see how effective any security outfit or network is by the moment there is a breach, the moment there is a security breach, then that signals failure on the part. So the fact that when the absence of breaches is what would make security be something that people would cheer. So when you get headlines like this, then then perhaps it will take away whatever shine the government, take a lot of shine off the government. But when you have these serial security breaches, it takes away the shine of the government.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to the Punch. Today's Punch newspaper, the major headline says APC may unveil Tinubu's running mates Wednesday. Party focuses on Northeast. It has riders. One says party won over Muslim ticket. Majority leader says no cause for alarm. BP shall come from Northeast. Governors focusing on the zone. Ado Dogwa, lawmaker. APC may concede Senate President to Southeast, Speaker to the Northwest. Then on top of the page, at the very top, FG's borrowing from CBN hits 19 trillion. Inflation may worsen. A story on page 33. Below that, there is a story of blackout, which was earlier reported in the Daily Trust. Blackout worsens as grid collapses 5th time in 2022. Democracy Day, governors demand credible elections. OPC don't decry feeding bottle federalism. Riders to this story, it will take a century to fix, it will take a century to produce another MKO Abiola, says family. Insecurity, corruption threaten Nigeria, nothing to celebrate, says Kaigama. This is a story this is a story on page 12 of today's Punch. Then just by the masthead, contributory pension gains 640 billion in 4 months hits 14 trillion. Story on page 35. Then another story on page 34. FG invests 379.6 billion in 23 states erosion control. The pictures on the front page of the Punch capture the story that is just below the pictures on the Owo massacre, which happened last weekend. Owo massacre, churches record low turnout, beef up security. Khan holds special prayer. You can see the Ondo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu visiting some of the victims, as well as holding prayers with officials of Khan in the state. Below the pictorial, FG was wrong to shut Nigeria's borders, says Deputy President of Freight Forwarders Association. On page 12, strike, FG meets ASU today, Sanu Friday. Club shooting, IG condemns Banner Boys, police escorts, orders probe. A story on page 12. Well, these and many other stories can be found in today's The Punch. So let's quickly look at the major story, the issue of running mate for Tinubu, which has been dominating discussion since Tinubu's emergence as the flag bearer of the APC. What do you think of this issue of Muslim ticket? It's been very naughty. A lot of extreme positions have been taken. What are your thoughts?
Well, let me just say, because you see, in this country, just a while ago, we were talking about the CADD we shouldn't campaign along, politicians. But you see, in our climb, the face here, and the faith, what you believe in, they count. So you can't be insensitive to these sentiments. The face and the faith, they count. So in order for people to have sense of inclusion, you have to respect that. But how did it even become an issue now? In 1993, and indeed before 1993, under military regime, people have made this allusion to the time Gawan was military, but that was military, number 1, 2, 3, 4. Even under Buhari as a military dictator, number 1, 2, 3, 4 were all Muslims. Under Gawan, 1, 2, 3, Gawan, his deputy, the chief of army staff at the time, and then under Buhari, Idiagbon, Babangida was chief of army staff, chief of naval staff, well, it was late Aikomo, but then you see 1, 2, 3. But this were a military regime, ruled by force of decrees. Now, but then look at it again in 1993. I used to say, and I still hold on strongly to this, that in Nigeria, and indeed any part of the world, politicians look at numbers. They don't look at faces. They don't look at faith. They look at numbers. The man who brings in the most votes is the one that is likely to be, but post-1999, these sentiments, sentiments have taken sway, they have taken center stage, and especially now we have the social media in the mix. Without the social media, perhaps things might be a little bit different, but with the social media in the mix, and social media, like we all know as reporters, as journalists, social media is more often than not, when it comes to politics, you see utopia. What I mean, utopia, people mix generously fact and fiction to drive home their point, which more often than not, they misfire. And out there in cyberspace, the sentiment dictates otherwise. Some of the millennial, young generation, they see, unfortunately, they've been manipulated over the years by these politicians of the old order, of the old hue, to think first ethnic, second religion. But if you look at it, really, when it rains, it pours on everyone, whether you're this, you are that. And then if you go along segmentation, even same faith, there is so much segmentation now. In some parts of the country, if you belong to one denomination of a faith, chances are that you may not prosper politically speaking. People will gang up because you have the same faith, but different denomination. We've seen that happen even in the northern part of the country. There is a cleric here in the northern part of the country who openly said it's better to strike a deal with someone of a different faith than someone who they share the same faith but different denomination. So you see, so it's important to balance, because of contemporary realities, to balance the ticket along this, well, if you like, this in recognition of the constitutional recognition that Nigeria is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society. Now, this is where I think Tinubu, coming down finally to Tinubu, would have a lot to do, a lot of balancing act. A lot of balancing act. Here is a Muslim from the southern part of the country seeking, will he replay what happened in 1993? Is it possible to have, but you look at Abiola, you look at Tinubu, and then you look at even those who are pretending over the transition. Under a military regime, Tinubu pulled off what amounted to the ninth wonder of the world.
You mean
Not
Abiola?
even Abiola, I beg your pardon. Abiola pulled something that in contemporary times may be impossible. And then look at how even he did that. And then look at even the sophistication, especially of the Kano voters and the northern voters as a whole. Look at their sophistication. In Kano, Tinubu defeated Son of the Soil.
Abiola defeated.
Oh my goodness, Abiola, I keep on making reference, I don't know, So Abiola defeated Tofa, an indigene of the state. He defeated it in his ward. What does that tell you about the sophistication, one, of the people of Kano, two, about Abiola as a person? Now, fast forward to 2022 and eventually 2023. Look at Tinubu. Tinubu has had a very cordial relationship with the government of Kano. I'm not talking about the people of Kano now. With the government, and this counts for something. And indeed, in some other parts of northwest zone, in Katsina, Tinubu is very well received by the government of Katsina State and elements there. So now, according to this story, how would he balance it, getting a northern Christian? Yes, it's good, it's strategic if he goes to northeast, according to the report here. But in the northeast, who are the likely people who will bring in the most? We are talking of votes here now. You see, necessity, when it comes, like they say, when the desirable is not available, the available becomes desirable. So this is where it's going to be. Some people, the naysayers of Tinubu will say, what stopped Tinubu becoming vice president in 2015 is likely to stop him becoming president in 2023. Unfortunately, this is not my view. This is what had happened in 2015 when he couldn't pair with Buhari, another Muslim, to be vice president. Okay. And that's why it necessitated the ascension of Osibanjo. So I don't know how they're going to pull this. Okay. But it's important that he balances the ticket.
All right, so quickly before we move on to the next paper, I want you to share your thoughts on these stories. Kaduna Rivers, 30 others attract zero foreign investment in first quarter. And then we have the federal government, the deputy president, freight forwarder, saying that the federal government was wrong to shut Nigerian borders. Share your thoughts, or do you see a correlation aside insecurity? By the way?
Kaduna, Rivers,
yes, and 30 others.
And 30 others.
That's like,
well, the thing is, I
that
think
means only four states attracted
yeah.
foreign investment.
Well, you see, people put their money where their mouth is, like they say. It's a common thing here. There must be a reason. But you see, in some other places, like notwithstanding, look at Kaduna, for example. The biggest thing here, we say that Kaduna, like I think Trust did a story here not too long ago about how the Northwest completely cut off. I mean, it's a known go area for foreign, what do you call them now? They have a name.
Expatriates.
Yeah, expatriates. It's directly linked to insecurity. You understand directly, there is a direct relationship between foreign investment. Because look, capital will not go where there is insecurity, when you don't feel comfortable. That's the nature of capital. Capital goes where there is security. And when I say security, beyond even the physical, we talk about energy costs now. And then, more importantly, beyond energy, beyond the physical security, energy cost, because you can't be borrowing, like people make this joke, that Nigeria is the only place where Nigerians power their businesses using sources of energy, only to pay the electricity company bills for energy not supply. So you see there is this relationship between insecurity and the reluctance of investors to invest. And look at some of the investors when they come. They only go there because they have detected a loophole where they make fast money and then retreat. In the last couple of years, actually in the last 2 years, businesses, foreign businesses, are actually divesting. ShopRite served notice that it was going to close shop, if you remember. Why? Because notwithstanding, look, they have, and consumers are here. But you see, beyond all these issues of energy security, physical security, also the question of integrity, trust deficit. People entrust with their businesses, they sabotage it. This is so much in the marketplace. Unless people want to play ostrich, there is deficit in integrity, in trust. You entrust people with your businesses, they wreck it. It's unfortunately, and I don't know, but I think it's not uniquely Nigerian thing, it's an African thing. I remember, is it Mo Ibrahim now, making allusion one time during one of this interaction, one of this colloquium about the trust deficit in African businesses. That's why some people go outside the shores to hire managers. To hire people who will manage their businesses. Because if you trust indigenous, there's the expertise, but unfortunately, there is no trust. And like most big business tycoons, owners said, people like Warren Buffett, people like, what's his other name again? They emphasize the importance of integrity. Integrity. If people like managers are they have deficient integrity, then capital will not come. And we know whoever run a business in Nigeria and Africa the first thing he will tell you is that people he hired, somehow there are so much leakages, unless we are very vigilant all the time. And, so it's understandable if they attract zero investment. Okay. Now, for the president of the freight forwarders, you see, Nigeria, a lot of people say at the time Nigeria closed its borders, it even was in violation of certain ECOWAS protocol. You understand? But you see, there must have been a reason. Sometimes, a while ago, I was just saying that something about availability and desirability. Sometimes, when there are nations there that deserve the right, government, to look at what are their existing challenges. When the government shut its borders, it actually checked the influx of illegal arms. It was in the public domain that helped in checking. But then, you see, even at that, freight forwarders they may not admit it, but Nigeria is so porous that there are so many illegal borders. How do you man them? We've seen instances, footages where rice is being smuggled on the backseat of motorcycles, and then in tons and tons of illegal. So yes, when Nigeria closed its border, well ahead before the outbreak of Corona, some people say that was even a masterstroke. But when Nigeria closed its border, what did it do differently? When it closed its borders, did the government take advantage of that for the reason it closed its borders? Well, that is the question people should be asking.
Question for another day. All right, so let's move on to this paper, This Day newspaper. On This Day newspaper, the lead story, you have pictures of presidential candidates, some presidential candidates of various parties, and it says, on your marks, here are the 17 finalists. And then just below that particular story, you have Nigeria too deeply troubled to be handed over to Tinubu, says ex-PDP legal advisor. And then at the top there, you have Goldman Sachs forecasts oil prices to surge to nearly $140 in weeks. And then National Power Grid collapses again as discos apologized. We have Owo killings. Southwest governors meet and declare 3 days mourning. And then Bakari here says, I confidently wear my zero vote as a badge of honor. And we have Oshibaja, others to Nigerians on June 12, use democracy to strengthen national unity. Now, let's talk about this story on Goldman Sachs forecasting oil prices to surge to nearly $140 in weeks. What does that mean for us here in Nigeria? Because for some of us, in 1 week, we actually saw diesel price, actually increase in less than 1 week.
Bad news for most Nigerians, because ordinarily you will say we want to jump for joy if the global oil price is soar. But each time it does that, there is this is inversely, proportional with Nigeria's fortune. what I mean for Nigerians, not Nigeria, as oil prices attract, soar, the problems of Nigerians also is directly proportional with our suffering, because that means because of the subsidy regime, this is the tragedy we're in, the vicious cycle. Oil that is native to us, we should be jumping for joy anytime it rises, because we are the economy.
That's what I also wanted to ask you. Yes. Like, shouldn't we be happy that the prices are going up, maybe meaning more earning for Nigeria?
Yeah, more earning, more trouble, because we're not refining. Yeah. We are not refining, because see, what we do, we take the crude out, then we've said it, I think, in this forum.
Yes, as it is, we can't meet up to the production.
Precisely, and we can't do that. That means we also have to, because of the subsidy regime now, we also have to buy at the international price. Unfortunately, in the last couple of months now, NNPC has been making zero contribution to the federation allocation, because it's making whatever profit it makes is to subsidize consumption. And this is self-inflicted tragedy, because the refineries are not working. They have zero refining in the last couple of weeks, notwithstanding the humongous amount of money devoted to turnaround maintenance. So as oil prices go up, Nigeria's misery level, if you like, if there's anything like that, misery level also goes up, because like you said now, the cost of diesel because has been completely deregulated is prohibitive. You can't even, it's unimaginable, you can't afford to run. I wonder how businesses run on this very expensive, at global price, diesel, for example. So as it rises, Nigeria's misery index also rises, and Nigerians will be the worst for it.
So are we still blaming the Russian-Ukraine war for these surges?
You see, the thing is, it may have played a very insignificant to me, because if you think, you plan ahead, and that's why government is there. Government plans ahead, just like when you head a family, when you're a family man, you plan, you look at their needs, and then you forecast. But then we have a situation, government is more often, not starting with this one, knee-jerk reaction. It has been said before, whoever inherited the mess the PDP was leaving behind in 2015, we're going to come to this pathetic stage. So, and then we have also a government that is not planning, not thinking ahead, always knee-jerk reaction. Every now and again, there is a gap in the economy or there is a deficit, then the next thing is to do, go a borrowing.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Ali M. Ali, Deputy President of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. Unfortunately, we have to draw a curtain on this segment of the program. We'll be back on top of the hour, where Ali M. Ali will still be with us as we discuss more on other issues of national importance. Do stay with us.